morning and welcome to Sunrise Day this Monday morning, right here in nation's capital, 27 degrees and a humidity of 19% with unlimited visibility. So it's going to be a very interesting day for those who are traveling. Welcome to the show. I am Kayla Magwa.
You know, you just reminded me of my kids this morning on their way to school asking, there's so much fog, we won't be able to see. But there is no fog and all those things. Then I had to start Geography 101. Anyway, good morning and welcome to the program. I'm Ayo Makinde. And talking about navigation, Kayla, I'm going to say Lagos. I don't know if you know this area, but let's take you to the Lagos-Shagamu interchange, you know. Now, when you talk about Lagos-Shagamu interchange, you are talking about quite a lot of places. It's just right there. The road that you see that goes straight ahead goes to Ibadan. But that road across, that is the Shagamu interchange that we're talking about. And to your left, beg your pardon, to your right, it takes you to different other parts of the country, particularly towards the south-south or Benin and the rest of them. That is the road that leads to that axis. Now, the iconic thing about this interchange is that it's seen quite some upgrading over the years, particularly I think during the Jonathan administration. A major upgrade happened with the Lagos-Shagamu interchange that was championed by the federal government under the Jonathan administration, and that is how come the place was so wide and so smooth for those who travel from Lagos to Ibadan, from Ibadan to Lagos. And that road across, to your right it leads into Ogun State, and to your left it goes to the different other parts of the country. Kayla.
It does look very intricate and necessary. I think that's one of the things I heard about this road, is that it was a necessary road. And it's pretty well done. I love the greenery there. You know, when you're thinking of those movies that you're trying to shoot, maybe we can incorporate this area in some of those movies. There's a lovely work that has been done there by the government, and of course one that's very important to the people who ply this particular road. The road networks in Nigeria, of course, there's a lot of infrastructure growth going on in the country. There's a lot of roads being built right now, and this is a testament to a government that understands the needs of the people in this area, because this road really does meet quite a lot of needs and feeds a very important value chain from the things I've read about this road. So a really good one there from Lagos. So good morning, Lagos, and thank you for giving us this skyline this morning.
And I think one of the things that many people need to know about this road, this area particularly, Kayla, is that it's an industrial environment. Major industries are around this interchange. I shouldn't be mentioning any one of them, otherwise marketing will come from me. But that's the that's the Lagos-Shagamu interchange, and so many industries, so many employments, and a lot. The lush green that you see there is no happenstance. Whether or not something is going to happen to them over time, I guess we'll have to wait to see. But you see, it's easy for you to link from Abeokuta or from Ogun State into the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway to head to Ibadan, Oyo State. It's really easy right there for you. But I have to tell you that the road we are looking at right now, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. I dare say a lot of expansion work is necessary on this particular one on the top left of your screen that leads to Benin and several other parts of the southwest of Nigeria. A lot of work needs to be done there, because if you apply it, God help you if you get caught in any kind of traffic along that route. But I can also say that it is safe, because quite frequently you see security operatives on that particular route to ensure that you get to where you're going safe and sound. But the roads themselves, I dare say, they need a lot of work. And there is always that argument, it's a federal road, it's a state road. I don't think all of that matters to us. Once we hear government, we don't care whether it's federal or state. Kayla, do we?
right, well, thank you very much, Ayo, for that skyline this morning. Beautiful Lagos. And of course, one of the major things we say whenever we see infrastructure is that we hope it is kept and everyone owns it. We all treat it like it's ours and make sure that it lasts the test of time. Now, we have a few things happening today. I'm going to start off with the presidency. The president is out of the country at this particular point in time, and that's because Africa is trying to become energy sufficient and doing everything to ensure that that sufficiency is done this year, or at least in the next few years. So the Africa energy sufficiency is going to be is the focus of this summit. The president is in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. For the heads of state, is a 2-day energy summit. What agreements are going to be signed here? What sorts of things are we going to be benefiting from as a result of these agreements? Well, that is something that we'll be looking forward to seeing. But there, Africa's energy sufficiency, one of the major things happening today. Also happening today, we saw this statement actually from Mr. Showore not too long ago, asking that the judicial correspondents assemble at the force headquarters because he wants to brief them before he honors the invitation of the police. So that is going to be happening today. What's he going to be saying? I think it's supposed to happen, in about 30 minutes, we hear. So the alleged criminal investigation on LSHA to address the judiciary correspondence. He was specific about what correspondence he wanted ahead of honoring the invitation by the police. Those are some of the major events that we have happening today in the nation's capital as well. And for everyone who's a member of the Customs Service, happy International Customs Day to you. We know that the celebration is going on somewhere in Maitama at this point in time. So congratulations to the Customs Service. We're praying for you, hoping that you deliver more on the things that you are supposed to do. We'll go on a short break. When we come back, we have the Humanitarian Minister here with us. He's going to talk to us about the past and the future. And of course, living with people with disabilities and the plans for 2025. So please stay with us. Welcome back. Joining us this morning for a very important conversation on the humanitarian ministry and what it's doing for the Nigerian people. They have a very interesting mandate, and that mandate has to do with the improvement of the quality of life of the Nigerians. The bulk of those Nigerians are living below the poverty line. How is he going to be doing that? What policies are in place? Well, Mr. Nantanwe Yilwada, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, joins us this morning.
Thank you, Kelly.
Good morning.
Good having me here.
It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you, Kelly.
And also joining us on the program, Mr. Jake Epele. He's actually joining us to give a perspective for the people living with disabilities, the founder of the Albino Foundation. He's joined us via Zoom from Istanbul. Good morning, Uncle Jake.
Hi, Kelly. You kept saying the Albino Foundation. We've changed.
Oh, we have?
Like the ministry, the humanitarian ministry have changed. We have changed.
Oh, I see.
We are referred to as TAF Africa.
TAF Africa.
Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kelly.
I'm going to start off talking with you really about people living with disabilities and the Tinubu administration. Has there been an improvement? I know that over the years you have seen some things get better, but there's a lot of things that you've been asking for. What's that been like? What's the what's the status really of the person living with disability under the Tinubu administration, especially with all these economic challenges that we're facing?
Thank you for that beautiful question. And I want to also say good morning to the Honorable Minister. I think what has changed is the fact that we now have a minister who understands the needs of the people. We do now have a minister who is experienced and willing and ready to deliver on the dividends of the humanitarian ministry. And I think I want to say that the president got it right this time because he chose someone who understands the community, chose someone who is part of the community. The Honorable Minister there has some form of disability that you will get to know in the course of time. But then we are on a trajectory to getting it right. Hopefully, the people around him will work like him to get things in motion for persons with disability, whether it's data, concrete intervention, the cash transfer. I think Prof is set to get things much better than his predecessors. And at the end of the day, our job is to watch him, hold him accountable, and tell him if he's going wrong, and also praise him where he's going, where he's doing right.
Let me come back to you, Honorable Minister. That's a lot to put on your shoulder.
Thank you, Kelly.
In addition to the things that you're supposed to do, because
yes.
I was looking at what your ministry is set up for.
Yes.
Tackle social inequalities.
Yes.
Reduce poverty.
Yes.
Empower the most vulnerable Nigerians.
Yes.
Developing policies aimed at improving the quality of life of those living in poverty.
Yes.
And we're talking about more than half of our population, according to the World Bank, living below the poverty line.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit. Let's start off with what Mr. Pello has been talking about, people living with disabilities.
Yes. Now, like he said, and he rightly put it, the people with disability are among the most vulnerable, because I tell them that if you're poor and disabled, it's like having double jeopardy. And if you're poor and you're disabled and a woman, double jeopardy. So we took note of this. Triple jeopardy. So we took note of all this in our response to the people with disability to ensure that we integrate them into what we're doing. I met with them and we set up a team jointly between all the groups in the disability community and my own ministry, how we can mainstream them into our activities, like the conditional cash transfer we're doing. How do we mainstream them into it? We have also the Empower. How do we mainstream them into it? We have also the loan scheme that we provide for agriculture and NSME and also nano businesses. How do we mainstream them into all those? And then we have cash for the grant for vulnerable group. How do we mainstream them into all these activities? Now, I keep on saying that, this ministry has actually three tripod that it stands on. Number one is humanitarian aids. Number two is peace building. And, the third and the last tripod is sustainable development and empowerment. Now, in these three tripods, you must bring the people with disability into these three tripods. People that are extreme in poverty, and you need to save their lives, they need humanitarian aid. But humanitarian aid cannot keep you for life. So you must bring sustainable development and sustainable empowerment so that you permanently move them out of poverty. Because it's like you have a fire brigade. You come in and quench a fire. After the fire, do you leave the house unconstructed and people live under the house like that? No. You must reconstruct the house in order people to come and live in and have sustainable means, because the fire brigade, the fire service, just quench the fire.
Yes.
It's just a stopgap. Now, but in long term, the peace building stops the humanitarian effects. So anything that can stop the humanitarian, effects is part of the peace building mechanism. So we must have these 3 tripods running in the ministry, which we've discussed with them, and that's what we're working on right now with them.
He said working with people with disabilities is a little personal for you because he says you have a disability.
Yes. I entered secondary school as a disabled student. I don't have sense of smelling. I can't smell. And I was a science student. So they have to work. I wrote my work as a disabled student. I went to university as a disabled student. So anywhere they put smelling in chemistry and other services, in the sciences, they have to get an aid from me. That will give me alternative practical. And that was what aided me. And that was how I was supported to reach this peak in my life. So assuming I didn't have that support structure, I wouldn't have risen from secondary school into university, even becoming a professor in the university.
The support structure for not having the sense of smell, this was in Nigeria.
Yes.
Is that still existent today? Are there kids right now who don't have a sense of smell like you do, who have this aid that can help them? You became minister. Look at what that aid did.
My secondary school then have a community of disabled students, the blind and others, especially not the blind students. And I was privileged to be among the disabled people. So my seatmate was a blind student, Pam. And so while my teacher aids me in my chemistry work, I was supposed to aid another disabled person. But I aid him in reading his notes out so that he can type them on the braille. So it was a community of support system that was set up in the school that can support all disabled students in the school until they graduate. And the school doesn't, they don't stop at secondary school. If you're a disabled student, you say as disabled student, they will support you up to university.
That's fantastic. I mean, I'm still the same question. I mean, do we have that sort of support system now?
Is that what we're discussing with them, with the community? We said the community, we must set up a structure from the system. Because from education, so supportive structure doesn't mean just structures, buildings, access to buildings, access to this, is access to education, access to health, access to facilities, access to jobs, access to everything. If I'm disabled, how do I, so these are the critical issues that we need to look at. How do we support a disabled student so you have access to quality education? How do you work with Ministry of Education as my ministry? Because my ministry actually encompasses all the ministries. And
a lot of collaboration.
Yes, so I need collaboration with almost all the ministries,
yes.
For the vulnerable group to have access to education, have access to water, have access to health, have access to everything.
I want to come back to Mr. Epele. You heard what the minister said. It does seem like he understands. It's interesting, important even. So the people with disability have a seat at the table. That's what this means. How do you feel about some of the things that you've heard, and what prospects do you have? Are there particular demands? I know we have to let you go soon because you're at the airport. Are there particular demands that TAF Foundation have for the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and the needs of people living with disability?
Let me start by giving credence to what he said about whether it's the person he supported, Mr. Pam. Not only did he say it, he called Pam and I spoke with Pam. Also to say that the Honorable Minister, when he keeps making references to people, disabled people, he's intentionally doing that as a communication expert that he is, to ensure that across board, people will have understanding the group of people he's talking to. But he knows, and the Nigerians knows that the right phrase is persons with disability, whether it's a student with disability, and all that. However, this is one minister that is serious as at today. Because I'm not here to give a stamp of authority but I'm just stating the obvious. We, as a community, he didn't want to start any implementation without first engaging us. And so I led the community of persons with disability, despite his schedule, despite how tight things were, he hosted us in his office and listened to us, you know, everyone make intervention. At the end of the day, he set up a committee, a strategic committee of a credible leaders in the community to work with him. And he gave us his word that I'm not going to do anything without you. That's the kind of public officers that I want to see. And I am ready and with other colleagues of mine to ensure that for the first time, we will get it right. Maybe you know that I used to be a very bad critic of humanitarian ministry. I used to call them Ministry of Inhumanitarian. But at this time around, and that's my nature, if you do well, I praise you. You don't do well, I criticize you. I have nothing to gain, I have nothing to lose, other than for us to ensure that persons with disability will get their rightful place. And we have found a minister, and we are grateful to President Bola Tinubu, and the community will work with trust to ensure that we will raise our head, beat our chest to say that now we can count on genuine intervention. I mean, he is a better orator than me. By the time he opens up and tells you the plans he has in as it regards to data and how he intends to bring integrity to the data, the social register, then you will know that this gentleman knows what he's saying. And of course, some other aspect he didn't tell you, which is the treat that I'm making, is also the fact that he's doing a lot for refugees, for IDPs,
absolutely,
and in the migrant space. You know, so maybe tomorrow, myself, Honorable Minister, and a couple of other Nigerians, where he's leading the delegation, we can actually tell you what is happening in Portugal, because he is taking over as the chairman of the Rabat process, and I'll be very honored to watch that happen.
I mean, it's a conversation that we will continue to have, but I do have to let you go there, Mr. Jacob Pele. Thank you so much for joining us on the program, and good luck with all your engagements in Istanbul.
Thank you. I'm on my way to Portugal. Honorable Minister, I'll see you tomorrow. God bless you, and God bless Nigeria.
Jacob Pele from TAF Africa. Oh, so let's get down to it. Listen to Mr. Jacob Pele. He does rebuilding hope, renewed hope, renewing hope in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. I want to start with that, because over the years, like he said, he used to call it the Ministry of Inhumanitarian Affairs. And for many Nigerians, when we hear humanitarian affairs, we roll our eyes. What are they trying to steal this time? Why is this? Sadia Umar, hold on. Sadia Umar, investigated for mismanagement of public funds, before. Better Edu suspended after allegations of diversion of that 585 million into personal accounts. So these incidents have cast a bad image on the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. How can Nigerians trust you?
I'm not asking Nigerians to trust me. I'm asking Nigerians to listen to what we're doing and watch what we're doing and judge us by what we're doing. You know, on Friday, I was in Benue. And because if you recall, last year I was on this, in this studio, in similar studio in Lagos, and I told Nigerians that we're working on durable solutions for the IDPs, because I believe that giving handout to the IDPs will keep them there forever. But creating sustainable livelihood for the displaced persons is a long-term plan that Nigeria needs to run. And we started with durable solution for the IDPs. What did we do? We designed a program. We ran a program, and we did a concept note. We shared with states that have displaced people. We shared with international community. We shared with community of NGOs and international community. We discussed with everybody, and they bought into it, and they believe that it's possible. So we started implementation this year, January. Our first port of call was in Benue State. In Benue State, what did we do in Benue State? Very simple. The IDPs were given land by host communities. So we chose 6 locations. that have large number of IDPs. 30% of the land, the IDPs, the host community contributed land as equity. The land was developed jointly by the state government and our ministry. The people were asked to form cooperative. They took ownership of the land. The essence of the joint ownership of the land by the host community IDP is for coexistence, social coexistence by the host community and the IDPs. They provided inputs, they provided all that they need.
Yes.
Then at the point of harvest, who now offtake 70% of what they will harvest as a cash component. We give them the cash. 30% will be their food component. They cannot have the cash. They will be taught financial literacy. They will choose whether to maintain farming or go into other businesses. And that's the only way we can get a sustainable way of moving these people out of poverty. Because people are being impoverished. You can imagine somebody who was having a farm, who was having an earning, who even have houses, may even have cars and the rest. Overnight, everything he ever had was destroyed. He was born and destroyed, and he was displaced. He now started a new life.
Oh, yes.
And that's the reason why we need the durable solution for the IDPs as sustainable means of livelihood for them.
Yes, I remember the Benue State governor was very excited at the time when this conversation was going on. But I want to come back to your ministry.
Yes.
Because one of the things that I've heard you say is that there's a restructuring that has happened.
Yes.
What kind of restructuring is happening? And the reason why I'm asking this is because we need to be able to trust the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. We don't want to see it as a place where people come siphon what they want to siphon and go. A place that doesn't really look out for the people. Accountability mechanisms. We need to know. Till today, when you hear people talk about the humanitarian, they keep talking about this school feeding program that was happening during COVID. What kind of virtual school feeding was going on? Was it happening while they were in their houses? You know, so there's a lot. I'm not saying you should respond to that directly, but there's a lot of things that have made the ministry one that we do not trust.
That's what I'm giving you the reforms we're making.
But the thing is, when it comes to these reforms and these interventions, when the other ones, the former ministers, they had tears in their eyes when they were telling us about the reforms that they were going to do. We believed it as well. What's different? What kind of restructuring have you done in that ministry to ensure that we can trust the work that you do?
The first reform we did was, number one, we suspended cash
transfer.
So you can't carry cash to give anybody.
Okay.
So now you must make a transfer through a valid account. That's number one. Number two, before now, you can be paid without having a valid identity, digital identity. Now it is required that you must have either a BVN or an NIN minimum before you are paid to enable us track and trace the people who are making payment. The reason why we need the NIN and all this data from these people is because we are paying household. A household contains the husband, the children, and the mother. That's a whole household. Now, if you pay a household, we don't want the household to be repeated in terms of payment. If we are paying somebody from the house, that same another person from that house should not be repeated. So you have, if I pay a son as a caregiver, or I pay the mother as a caregiver of that house, I shouldn't pay a second person in that family again. The person should not end another from the conditional cash transfer. Yes. So it aids transfer and distribute the wealth more among the people than concentrating, because sometimes maybe for one reason or the other, people want to circumvent the process. They will choose, they will repeat those names among themselves and just change other surname on the rest. But with the caregiver capturing of data, it allows to track everybody who is involved in the payments. So that has helped us to reduce the number of people who were being repeated, And then secondly, you can also have a trail of the payments you are making. That's an audit trail. Because if you can audit the payment, it means that you have a challenge. So giving digital identity help us to reduce fraud. That's number two. Number three, we also want to bring financial literacy into what we're doing. So that these people are not just giving the money, but there's financial literacy to help them to reinvest the money. If somebody is a farmer in the village and he has 75,000 being paid to him in a year, he can now plan how he can buy fertilizer, how he can expand his farm, how he can improve his crops. If maybe a woman, she can also plan maybe a small business, a nano business, a micro business. They can come even as a cooperative and work as a group to expand their businesses and even invest. And then finally also, we also create that our program should be interconnected. If you're under conditional cash transfer and you earn it for a year and you give financial literacy, we have a loan scheme that is interest-free and collateral-free.
Yes.
And under the JIP. And so 0 interest, 0 collateral, only a corporation will form, which means that these people can graduate from just earning a handout into taking a loan and establishing businesses and exiting out of poverty. So these are the reforms we're making to ensure that these people keep exiting out of poverty instead of continuously paying them money.
So I want to be able to look at what programs are, because on your website there's the NPower.
Yes.
CCT, conditional cash transfer.
Yes.
JEEP.
Yes.
And the school feeding program.
Yes.
Are there other interventions?
And GVG.
GVG.
Yes.
What's that?
That's Grant for Vulnerable Group.
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
So those are the programs that we have ongoing.
Yes.
How did you get the people that are supposed to benefit from this?
That's just one. We have several agencies.
Oh yes.
We have the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and people, and IDPs.
Yes.
And then we have the Commission for People with Disability. Then we have the Center for Senior Citizens.
Oh yes.
And then we have the SDG.
Yeah.
All under my ministry.
So when we talk about the people who are supposed to benefit from these social safety nets, that's what they're called. I know the World Bank talking about it recently and saying this is the catalyst, this is the way to build societies. We need social safety nets.
Yes.
We start to think about our social register.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that's another issue that many Nigerians have. Do we have a functional register of the vulnerable in society?
Currently we have a register that was generated. It took almost 8 years to generate that list. It has 19.8 million people on the social register. Now, but when you have a list, you need to validate that list. And for now, people that are validated are only about 1.2 million. So we need to validate the entire register so that we can get the actual people that are supposed to benefit from it, authenticate their location, their houses, where they are, and we capture them on GPS location of their homes, so that we're sure that these people exist. These people are actually they as poor as they claim, because there's a social indices of judging poverty, like access to water, access to health, access to education, access to economic facilities. So all these things are indices that are used to judge the level of poverty, so that you can now pick the poorest of the poor in the society, and you can also group them into the urban poor and the rural poor.
Yes.
So these
very important distinction between the urban poor and the rural poor.
So these are things that must do for us, in having a social register. And after you've done that, then we must also work on providing interface between these data.
This register, so I want you to get Nigerians to hear from you directly.
Yes.
Where did the names come from?
Now, we have a focal person in each state.
Okay.
That normally the state government gives to the ministry. Then in the local government, you have people that they are under the social department, that are the focal person in each local government. Then the ministry normally procure a consultant who works with these people, so that they will go down to communities and rural poor. But how do you generate the list first? Normally NBS generate what they call the poverty rate of the country.
Okay.
Then you can just spatially distribute this poverty rate across communities. When you distribute it, then you can now use that list to pick communities that are among the poorest of the poor. So you now look at the percentages and generate names based on those percentages across the country. By the time you do that one, you can generate a list of poor people on the social register. But you now validate, because generating lists is another thing. Yeah. Validation gives you the indices that you can use to judge individual within that social register.
So this register, it has nothing to do with the state government. It's your officials in the local areas that are generating these names.
Yes.
So now, it's not one of those.
No, in each community.
Yes.
When they go to a community, they will gather the community into a town hall meeting. They will ask the youth to meet separately, the women to meet separately, and the men to meet separately. Then each of them will define what's called poverty in their community. Because what is called poverty in the city
is not the same.
It's different from what is poverty in the village.
Yes.
What is called poverty in Lagos is different from what is called poverty in Maiduguri. So when you define what is called poverty in their community, then they will run people in their community from the poorest to the half, from the half not to the people that have it. So when you run them from the poor to the poorest, then the community will not, the group will pick the the three names and compare. If your name appear among the poor in the three groups of the community, it means the community has judged you to be truly poor.
And this is a digital process. This is strictly digital.
This first phase is manually captured.
Okay, so this is the first phase.
Because you hold a meeting with the community.
Then after,
the community will now write this thing. When you write it, they will display the names to the community. That generate. So the community will validate that these are the names that will truly generate. After the validation, they will now carry the names down to our ministry. So it's at this point that we will now go for validation. That the names that these people claim that they gave are the same names that they're given to us, so that along the line, no name is changed.
So the social register is not a political construct?
No, it's not.
My colleague in Lagos has a few questions for you.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Kayla. You know, allow me to start from one of the conversations you're having. It's related to what you're talking about, Kayla, and that social register thing. Remember, you know, I think in the wake of this administration, the governors had doubts about the social register, and then they said they wanted to come up with theirs because for whatever reason they didn't believe in the register that existed at the time. So, Honorable Minister, in terms of partnership with states, particularly about this social register thing, what roles would you say that the states have played in coming up with what we have now, if we are still having struggles validating the register that you have?
The social register is related by the states, not even by the federal government, because we have a focal person that is appointed by the state. We have the social department of local government generated by the state. Now, what we do is that after mining names, after generating names from the social, at the local government to the state, and then to us at the national here, we now mine these names from the poorest. We pick the poorest of the poor, and then we now go for validation. When you go for validation, before you come back and pick the list, we don't actually pick these names based on political party or political affiliation. And that's the reason why most people want us to bend for political reason. Unfortunately, it's a partnership between us and international community. The World Bank are involved, international community are involved, CSOs are involved, and it's not just a ministry activity. So it may not fall under a political circumstances that maybe people want us to have. Some people want us to bend and allow the governors or the state just generate a list and send. These lists are generated by, it's a conditional cash transfer. Conditions are attached to you qualifying to benefit from the social intervention, the social safety net. So for now, we will not bend to allowing any political, affiliation or attachment to this conditional cash transfer. Poverty doesn't know political party. Poverty doesn't know tribe. Poverty doesn't even understand the grammar we're blowing. A poor person is a poor person. I want to restrict ourselves to just the poverty indices rather than the political affiliation or tribal affiliation or regional affiliation. So we want to stand by the indices that were defined by the government and the World Bank as criteria for selecting the poorest of the poor in the society.
So if this list is having this challenge of validation, as you say, one then begin to wonder where the list from the states came from, if according to you there are about 9 million people you said on the register, and you've only been able to
19.8 million.
Okay.
You know, like I told you, this thing has two stages.
Just to
the first stage is the social register.
So you can answer everything together. Just so you can answer everything together.
Okay.
So you say about 20 million people, almost 20 million people on this register, but you've only been able to validate. Yes, 19.8. But you've only been able to validate about 2 million people, you said. How come the disparity? That's the question, sir.
Okay, you know, before now, payments were made without any form of digital identity. It wasn't a condition for payment. But to ensure that we avoid the mistakes of the past that lead to corruption and other malversation of the process, we needed to bring some credibility to the payment. So we requested that we needed to get a digital identity of people who are involved. And that's the reason why we introduced that all the beneficiaries must have either an NIN or a VIN. For now, people that we've captured that have both NIN or NIN are about 1.4 million. Now, this 1.4 million are people that have digital identity already and they can be paid. Now, if you recall, last year, they paid about 5.6 million people, household leaders. That's 25,000. But when this was introduced later, towards the end of the year, which was a condition, we could only pay 1.4 million that have the digital identity. But this is the most important thing. This we were working with NIMSI to do that. NIMSI has already deployed our 1,000 systems, and they are buying additional 3,000. And they approve additional 3,000, making 6,000 devices that will be deployed across the country to capture the digital identity of these people. That's harvesting the digital identity of these people, so that we ensure that payments are made based on credibility. And the president has asked us to pay 15 million households. And like I keep on saying, each household in Nigeria is roughly between 4 to 5 people on average. So we're targeting that if you are paying 15 million households, multiplied by number of people in the household, we're targeting about 70 million Nigerians to benefit from the conditional cash transfer. And that's what the president is targeting to do within the shortest possible time.
Well, Honorable Minister, the question I want to ask now is a little, interesting.
Yes.
Is culture likely to play a role? Is culture likely to influence this digital process? Here is why I'm asking. Over time, every time we're talking about population sensors and the rest of them, and by the way, I'm still wondering how we're able to determine all of that without a significant population. So, a population figure. So, every time we talk about counting people, population numbers and all, there is always that interplay of culture, of the influence of culture, the impact of culture. There are some things, some people cannot come out because of culture, some people cannot be identified, some people cannot be counted, you cannot see their face and all those things. So how will this impact on the numbers? Because in some states, for instance, they'll probably say, because of our culture, some things cannot happen. Because of our culture, some things cannot be allowed. So how do you navigate that in the states where that is likely to play a role?
For now, we don't have that problem because, like I told you, we've captured 19.8 million household leaders, including even capturing the household members. So what we captured is not just household leaders, that's the caregivers. We captured including even the household members. That's why I'm taking until we're targeting almost 70 million people. Because over 70 million people have been captured. Because if you go to a house, you capture the caregiver and the members of the family. And so we've not had any challenge with culture for now in what we've been capturing. And maybe if we have in the future, we can navigate it. But for now, we don't have a problem with that. And the reason is because, like I told you, if you go to a community, you divide the community into women, into men, and into youths. So the women on their own will sit down and select the people that are having this challenge. So we don't even select the people. It is the community that choose people who are poor in their community, and they give us their names. We only go to their homes now. When they give us those names, we can now go to their home, access their homes, and they capture their identity and their data. And that's where we come in, to go to their homes and do the data capturing. And for now, we don't have a problem with culture.
Now, how about population? There are those who have said that we don't even have a significant, reliable data, so to speak. So, on the one hand, how do you think, how much impact do you think the lack of a population sensor figures over the years has impacted on this? Because there are those who are just wondering how we are able to rely on speculative data. A second leg of that is the NBS figures of, I think, 2022, talking about multidimensional poverty and the percentage of people that are multidimensionally poor. And with the fact that Sokoto State alone has more than 95% of the people said to be living below that are said to be multidimensionally poor, just one state, and quite a number of states, in the country like that. How significant are those figures for you? The one that exists and the one that we are still working to get?
Yeah, when it comes to what we're doing, Ayo, we target people who are under extreme poverty. Multidimensional poverty talks about several indices, like access to education, access to water, access to credit, access to several, even access to sanitation and the rest. But where we come in is people who are under extreme poverty, that if you don't actually pull them out of poverty, it may affect their livelihood. People that their livelihood is affected, is challenged by poverty. These are people who are targeting. But multidimensional poverty we're talking about is that you look at access to education, you look at access to health, you look at access to water, access to infrastructure, access to several things. So you now use these indices to judge the multidimensional poverty. But we discuss in my own ministry, we target people who are under extreme poverty, because the multidimensional poverty simply means that we transfer it to several ministries. Minister of Health, Minister of Water Resources, and if you look at it also, most of these indices we're talking about are actually with the state government, not even with the federal government. If you look at sanitation, it's with the local government. If you look at water distribution, it's with the state government. If you look at land for agriculture so that food can produce, it's with the state government. If you look at health, the primary and secondary health centers, they're with local government and state government. If you look at primary education and secondary education, they're with the local government and state government. So the multidimensional indices for judging poverty, actually, it's on the desk of the federal government. It lies majorly with the state governors and with the local government chairmen. So we target people who are under extreme poverty, so that federal government can come in to intervene, so that we can pull them out of poverty.
It's a very significant one, Honorable Minister. And quite a number of times you've talked about poverty in our conversations since Kayla has been asking you questions. And
yes,
you have also lent your voice to every tanker explosion due to fuel spill in different parts of the country, in Niger State, in Enugu State. You have lent your voice. And there are those who would say, and of course you put quite a lot of the responsibilities on the states, and rightly so, because that's what the Constitution says. However, people still go out, and when there is an oil spill or a fuel spill on the streets, do you really, is there a nexus between what people do and poverty, or it's just, what do you make of it?
Now, Ayo, we've tracked the events of this issue of scooping of fuel, and it's been a long-term challenge in Nigeria. It has spanned years that once there's an accident, sometimes even a foodstuff, people just rush and carry the foodstuff. And it's not just today, not just 10 years ago, not just 20 years ago. So what we need is more or less an orientation of the people, especially when there's a fuel tanker explosion, like the one in Suleja that took place. When it happened, the vigilantes in the community came and fenced off the place completely and avoided, to avoid explosion. But suddenly, some people came from within the community and overran the number of vigilantes that they have there to scoop the fall. And we had what we had. And we lost almost 90 people in the course of, in that incident. And the one in Enugu, we lost about almost 10 people. So, we keep on having people from the economy to everything. And that's why the president has just set up a committee to look into the remote cause and look at how we can reduce those incidences. And I'm sure the committee will look into the details of that and see how we can profile solutions to that.
Honorable Minister, at the end of the day, it comes back to the people. And there are those who have also pointed to road networks and all of that. But just one last question from me for now. Yes. You were talking with Kayla earlier about the disability in Nigeria. And my mind just went to disability in rural Nigeria. Yes, I know states, have their own responsibility. But then there is first of all, the level of awareness. There are those who just live with it and say, look, it's just the way God wants it. People don't even know how to relate with people living with disabilities. What's the effort that you think both your ministry at the federal level and states can execute to ensure that at least there is enough awareness of how to relate with people living with disability in Nigeria, particularly in rural Nigeria?
We want to set up, if you look at it, some state governors have set up Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. But the commissioners came over to us that they set up the ministries and there's no mandate given to them on what to do. So we set up, we work with all the agencies that we have and all the community of vulnerable group that we have in the country to set up what we call the Humanitarian Council of Nigeria. So we are meeting on that. Already the World Bank, the United Nations, other communities are working on it, along with us to ensure that we get that done. And that will help us so that we can respond to those needs, so that from the state to local government, the response should not just end at the national level, because it's like the response about disability and about a vulnerable group lies only at the national level. If we can have what we have at the national level repeated at the state level, so the state level can have their social safety nets. They can also have the conditional cash transfer. They can also have their vulnerable group grants. Because they can also have, their loan scheme for the vulnerable group. So that we have the intervention across the country. So the federal government comes in. If you add what the state can do, we can repeat the same thing at the local government level. If that is done, we can move a lot of people out of poverty, and that will provide a lot of safety nets.
That's a very important part of this conversation. And I don't want us to end this conversation without talking about the 2025 Humanitarian Needs and Response Plan.
Yes.
That collaboration between the federal government and the United Nations.
Yes.
129 million people living below the poverty line according to the World Bank.
Yes.
Statista says, rather, 88.4 million Nigerians in extreme poverty.
Yes.
Then the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics says 63% of Nigerians, that's 133 million people in multidimensional poverty.
Yes.
This year, with this plan, the Humanitarian Needs and Response Plan between the federal government and the UN, in fact, I was listening to it, and Mr. Fall, who's the UN representative, he said we need 910. He said we need $910 million. Just for the Bay States, that's been Borno, Adamawa, and Yola.
Yes.
$910 million.
Yes.
Where are you going to get your funding from? Do you have enough funding to be able to do all these projects? And with the economic situation that we have in the country, how is your ministry going to manage poverty in Nigeria?
Actually, if you look at it, that's why if you look at the data the president gave us, they are informed data that the president gave us to do. For example, targeting 15 million households. Multiply 15 million by the average household, which gives about 70 million. It means that he's targeting 70 million Nigerians with conditional cash transfer. That's only one aspect of a target. He also asks us to target to create 2 million jobs. And part of it is, he asks us, the government procured items for empowerment to set up community, to set up a bit small, micro and nano businesses. And we're also deploying. They're already procured. They're already in our possession already. So what's left for us now to do, conduct training on drug deployment, and also integrate them to the market space and private sector.
So 700 million naira for 15 million households.
You say?
700 million naira for 50 million households?
No, rather, if you listen, 75,000 naira per household.
75,000 naira per household.
Targeting 15 million households.
Okay.
75,000 naira targeting 15 million households.
Okay.
But each household has an average of 4 to 5 people. Multiply by 15, you have roughly about 70 million Nigerians being targeted by Mr. President. Which means that if you go for roughly about 80 million people, about 70 million people are targeting under only one aspect of it.
I mean, the accountability part of this will be very strong on you. I need to understand that. We need it. Is it going to be digital? Is it going to be on the web? How do we get accountability?
And that's I'm telling you that it's going to be clearly digital.
Okay.
We're not going to, and this time around, like Mr. Jake said, we're carrying the CSO along.
Okay.
So that all the payments we ask them to verify, they can do a follow-up behind what we're doing, so that we can have some level of transparency on what we're doing.
Honorable Minister, there's never enough time. There's never enough time. I've realized this, but I really hope we get to see you again.
We
can talk a little bit more about some of these projects that you have for 2025. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Nentawe Yilwada, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. That's a conversation we've had this morning. All right, we'll go on a short break. It'll be time for Business Morning. John Mekwa will be on, and that'll be after these commercials. We'll be back at 9:30 with more conversation. Please stay with us. That's right. It's a different scenario this morning, all the way from our studio at the Stock Exchange in Marina, Lagos. That's where Business Morning is reaching you from. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 30 Minutes of Business. Before we head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio, I'm John Mekwa, and we're doing business starting as usual from the global space. We can tell you about oil prices this morning. That prices fell more than 1% today in one session after U.S. President Trump called on OPEC to reduce prices. We know he did that on Thursday, I believe, following the announcement of wide-ranging measures to boost U.S. oil and gas output in his first week in office. Brent, we see lost 87 cents. That's more than 1%, 1.11% to $77.63 a barrel after settling up 21 cents on Friday. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was at $73.77, and that's after it lost 89 cents. That's 1.19%. Trump has reiterated his call for the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries to cut oil prices to hurt oil-rich Russia's finances and help bring an end to the war in Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that he and Trump should meet to talk about the Ukraine war and energy prices. However, OPEC and its allies, which include Russia, is yet to react to Trump's call for that cut of price. Both benchmarks posted their first decline in 5 weeks. That happened last week as concerns eased about sanctions on Russia disrupting supply. Goldman Sachs say that they do not expect a big hit to Russian production as higher freight rates have intensified higher supply of non-sanctioned ships to move Russian oil, while the deepening in the discount on the affected Russian export grade attracts price-sensitive buyers to keep purchasing oil. Now we'll go to the Naira, see how that fared last week. The Nigerian FX market saw a strong influx of dollars, driving a notable appreciation in the CBN's closing rate. It closed by 17 Naira 50 kobo to settle at 1,531 Naira. That's for the CBN. While NAFEX firmed, there was also a gain there. Gained 5 Naira 78 kobo for the week to close at 1,549 Naira 22 kobo. And then looking ahead, well, it's expected that we'll maintain this range about under 1,600 at least in the official windows, while that cannot be said for the parallel market. We've seen it go beyond 1,600, but at least on the official windows, we do see that stability in the last weeks. Now, heads of state, including our president, President Bola Tinubu, as we speak, they're at Tanzania, and it's Mission 300 Africa. It's an energy summit, begins today at Dar es Salaam, and heads of state are there. They're expected to converse and commit to ambitious reforms and actions to expand access to reliable, affordable, and sustainable electricity, talking about electricity, to 300 million people in Africa by 2030. Mission 300 is an unprecedented collaboration between African Development Bank, the World Bank Group, and global partners to address Africa's electricity access gap using new technology and innovative financing. Nearly 600 million Africans lack electricity, which is crucial for development and job creation. So we'll follow. It starts today and ends tomorrow, 27, 28. That's when the summit is holding, and we'll see what comes out of that. Hopefully something tangible will come out of those conversations. Now, it's a season, still a season of economic outlooks. Yesterday, Catholic Women Organization had theirs, and it was a meeting of not just women, but they invited economists, and also a little bit of spiritual touch was part of the conversation, and it's all to review and strategize for 2025. Knowledge of the economy and strategies to navigate in harsh times is everyone's concern. That's why the Catholic Women Organization is holding its maiden annual summit. The women say it's a platform to connect faith to works and steps to build resilience. Individuals with relevant information are lined up for the meeting, beginning with economist and Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rewani.
I pointed out to you that the level of disequilibrium has reduced. What it means in economics is that the next change is not going to be as violent as the previous change, because the gap between the true market and the market is very narrow.
Information received, however, faith and resilience is in the mix, but women are still challenged to take up steps.
Do you have what it takes to energize and ignite that grace to act for you? Grace is a quantum of power.
And even here, the topic of gender equality comes up.
We're all challenged. We all have collective responsibility to make sure that our women folk are empowered.
When I started, somebody saw something in me and said, no, this will not be a man's thing alone. Let us try a woman. If the woman did not develop herself to make herself what it is to be a leader, nobody will see you. You have to make yourself relevant.
The Catholic Women Organization believes that talks like this have become necessary to face Nigeria's economic realities.
Not just 2025, we're looking up to 2027, because even the government, the political clout of the government is thinking of 2027. We too have to be thinking of 2025 to 2027 to be realistic. And even at the lowest level and at the high level, we all have to be agents of change.
The event is set to be held annually with themes that reflect current economic situations. So that's it. Catholic women also are concerned about the economy and how they would survive this year, 2025. We do know that there's been a lot of optimism in the air from a lot of people I have spoken with, at least. They do expect that the pains of the reforms that we saw in 2024 should birth some benefits this year. But I wonder what Mr. Georgia told me things about this. Mr. Tomi, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us here. Happy New Year. Yes, Happy New Year to you too. So I've spoken to a couple of people about the year 2025, and they're kind of excited and expectant. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Well, I'm not too surprised about that. It's almost like a car that's going downhill. you get to the bottom, there's no other thing to do but for you to start coming back up. So the mere sense that the worst of the reforms is behind us, we can now begin to see how we can take the slow climb back to normalcy is enough boost, you might say. What people have done over 2023, 2024 was to adjust to the shock that came with these massive reforms. Ordinarily, they should have been prepared for it. They were not prepared for it. So it came as a shock. I think they've overcome that shock now and now beginning to adjust life to the realities of what they knew Nigerian economy would look like, and then you begin to then make this slow climb back up. So that's the reason for the optimism.
But I guess because you said back to normalcy, normalcy is going to look different.
Yeah, I mean back to normalcy. Yes, maybe I should qualify that. Not normalcy in the false life we're living with heavily subsidized in almost all facets of our life, but normalcy the way you expect it in any climb where there are rules and markets determine your behavior, and so you expect that upon the happening of certain events you get some certain results. That's what I call normalcy, and I think we're beginning to all get to that point because it took us time to wean ourselves of this whole subsidy thing. Petroleum was heavily subsidized, we got used to it. Forex was heavily subsidized, we got used to it. Power was heavily subsidized, we got used to it.
Is power still being subsidized? Because I think there's another shocker that is coming. We're dealing with telecoms now. The battle is on.
Yes.
But I don't think we have dealt with electricity yet, or have we?
Well, no. The electricity subsidy has been drastically reduced. That's why I would call it. And then the adjustments has been in this form of banding customers to, as you know, band A, B, C, where we're beginning to try and achieve some tariff complicity with regard to what you consume and how it relates to the cost of electricity. I always say that discos themselves pay for electricity, and once they have to pay back to the market plus a fair margin, it will reflect on what consumers pay. So this is what you have. Now, could the banding have been done differently? Because what has happened is that you've segmented a group called Band A.
Yes. Sorry, Mr. Tommy, please do hold your thoughts. We need to take a short break now. We'll certainly continue from that Band A. A lot of people will be interested in that. Let's take a break. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us. So you're welcome back to Watching Business Morning on Sunrise Day here at the NGX studio. That's where we're broadcasting from this morning. And Mr. Tommy is here with us. We're talking about electricity subsidy and of course the Band A. A lot of people still complaining about it. I don't think we've gotten used to it yet.
No. Again, you see, we can argue with the benefit of hindsight whether we should have segmented a tiny portion of consumers whom we assume can afford it, quadruple their electricity tariffs, and then leave the other band state in the hope that you have what I call a cross subsidy from this Band A group on the other members of the group. But again, I think with the benefit of hindsight, we're beginning to see that it's creating undue hardship on these so-called Band A customers, and what perhaps should have been done should have been some streamlining and ensuring that these tariffs cut across. You may spare maybe Band E, that's the least of the list, and then but certainly from A to D, you should have done some sort of proportionate spread so that everybody contributes, as it were, towards ending the subsidy. Just having a few people carry that load could have a negative effect. Already you're seeing on tertiary institutions, they are complaining. They were suddenly put on Band A, and it just sort of took their budget totally off whack, where manufacturers are complaining. Even domestic consumers are complaining. And what we're beginning to see, which is not very good for the market, is a tendency for people to start moving away from grid electricity. And people are now going on solar. Yes, the investment is heavy in the beginning, but over a period of time, you not only recoup that investment, but you win yourself from over-relying on the grid. That long-term may not be good for the grid, because then your most able, your most prosperous customers are beginning to do without you. And I can tell you, I have so many friends and I know so many people who rely less than 20% today on grid electricity, and that long term is not good for the market. So we must begin to look at ways of where we can ensure that we have a fair spread amongst all the consumer groups except perhaps Band E, who you can say, because Band E requirements are not big, all they just want is their electricity point, television to watch their games, and fan and all that. But for all the others, once there's a measure of luxury to what you do, then you should be able to pay a fair price for it.
So do you think that this Electricity Act, where you now have states, they can generate, distribute, and all of that, do you see that filling this gap we talked about?
It's a game changer. It's going to be a game changer, but it's early days yet, because the devil is always in the details. But in principle, states are beginning to take control of their electricity market. It's a positive move towards over-reliance on the grid, because the problem, let me refresh your mind, is that there is generating capacity exists today. That number is put at anything around about 13,000 megawatts. But where the problem is the ability to wheel that power to the discos for ultimate distribution to consumers. The grid is constrained for so many reasons, including the fact that it's very old. And whenever you have that constraint, you are struggling with the ability of the discos to give that electricity. So the solution today, many people now find, is with mini grids. That is, states who are taking control, have energy sources, can begin to create their own mini grids. And what you mean by mini grid is you just have a conglomerate of consumers in a particular area, serve them and ensure that electricity gets to them without the need to get to the super grid. And we will begin to see that with different forms of electricity sources, whether it's hydro, whether it's solar, especially in the rural areas, and especially for what I might call targeted customers, like manufacturers, like who are now beginning to go into the solar world. So the future of the super grid is endangered, let me just put it that way. But it's not anything bad. You still need the super grid, but the Electricity Act just enables states participate in all the value chain of the electricity industry. And what they will now do is that they will control their fortunes. Take Lagos State, for example. Lagos State is served by Eco Disco and Ikeja Disco. Ikeja Disco has Egbin. The same owners have Egbin, so they have a source of electricity. But right now they have to pass that electricity through the grid. But if you devise a means by which that electricity can be given directly to consumers in Lagos by passing the grid, it will go a long way to solving the electricity problem in Lagos. Same thing with Eco Disco. I'm sure you know recently that the original buyers are now, there's the first, what I might call, market-driven acquisition, which is a very good development. And the new owners are made up of Gencos. You have North-South Power, Hydro, you have Axela, Thermal, gas, and then you have Stanbic IBTC, that's the infrastructure funds. So you now have the deep pocket you have the source of electricity. So all Lagos State needs to do is, through regulatory innovation, encourage that power to get directly to Eco-Disco with minimal interference from the national grid. Once they do that, we'll get to the tariffs later, but let it be available.
Yeah,
so
just like petrol. But you know, some people have argued that this is going to bring a lot of inequality and imbalance, because we can talk about Lagos now. We can even talk about River State, you know, and Federal Capital Territory. But can you mention some states that even if they were to generate this power, the disposable income to pay for it, you know, so that there's no incentive for this investment, even if you wanted to attract the private sector to come and, you know, get interested in it. So won't this cause a major imbalance worse than the situation we have?
Look, no. First of all, just understand that we're not doing away with the grid. So the grid will still be there to serve those who need to get power from the grid. We're not doing away with the grid. But what we also do not want to do is to allow the current grid structure slow down states that want to move as rapidly as possible to industrialize. I heard you talk about African Heads of State meeting in Tanzania. It's an embarrassment that we have over 600 million people that are not served by electricity. How do you then develop? So it is not a question of inequality. It's a question of allowing access to those who need the power so that they can rapidly industrialize. And if the creation of mini grids or any other sort of electricity arrangement that gets reasonably priced, because that's very important, electricity, of course aided by all the modern things you require, AI and all that, that's possible. So let them go, don't slow them down. Those who need the grid will still get power from the grid. I mean, life was never made for what you might call egalitarianism, which we always like to talk. It talks about equity. Once there is equity, people have access. Even the banding system, it tries to mimic what I'm talking about. Okay, big boys band, hey, you want power, take it, pay for it, and so forth, and all that. That could be discrimination if you want to look at it that way. But the overarching problem in Africa is that we're being slowed down by our inability to control our future. And the future today is those who can control their energy security own the future. It is not for nothing that the US is wanting to go to Greenland. It is not for nothing there is this big argument about drill. It's not for nothing. Everybody knows the importance, and global energy needs, the appetite continues to grow. It continues to grow in spite of the varied sources of electricity. With all the noise about ending the reliance on fossil fuels, no way. Gas is still...
Coal is even still being used in some countries.
You can say that all and on. And if you go round Nigeria, every state has its unique selling points with regard to energy. It's just that been untapped because we pursued a national grid system over the years, just like with everything else that made us lazy. Right now, we are going to challenge the genius in us and begin to look inward to solve our problems. Look, if anybody was in doubt about President Trump, he said it. America, we're looking inward. So if we plan, yes, I mean, globalization is not going to go away in a hurry. But what that message is to every one of us, including Nigeria, is we must begin to look more inward towards resolving our problems, whether it's food security, whether it's energy security, whether it's even infrastructure. We just must do that, and we have the manpower. What has slowed us down over the years has been what I said, we've become all lazy from this feeding bottle for crude oil.
But finally, before we let you go, now the energy summits, you know, the 300 million, we know that it's all started. I think it started, at least when I noticed it, was at IMF. World Bank proposed it, AFDB jumped on it, and then they now came together to say they want to empower or provide electricity to 300 million by 2030. Now we have African leaders meeting, but a lot of people just say, our president is just coming from one, he's going to another meeting. Do things really come out of this?
Look, your president is your super salesman. Let's not beat about the bush. Presidents all over, that's what they do. They're all traveling. Macron is all over the map.
Trump doesn't travel that much, though.
Trump, any days yet, but Trump is saying, even if I don't travel, I will do things that will ensure that you feel me. The important thing is that your president is your super salesman. So I'm not going to join the bandwagon to query the president for traveling. But let's get on the importance of energy for African development. Over the years, African natural resources have been fuel for the development of other economies. All economies but African economies. So take Nigeria, for example. We have so much gas, and yet gas utilization within is minimal. And yet we have LNG and we're exporting. Yes, we're making dividends out of it, but how is that contributing to your energy security? And we saw that during the power privatization, with all the promises made about providing 5,000 megawatts upon the inception of privatization, we hardly met that target. And this is 12 years later. And why? The reason is that most of your gas fields, just like your crude oil, have been concessioned to the big boys. Secondly, you have not developed gas infrastructure for domestic use. For export, yes, not for domestic use. So Africa must begin to rejig its entire energy policy. And I think meeting at that sort of level to send a message down is the right way to go.
Isn't it strange that we have developed infrastructure to export our gas, and yet we haven't developed it for domestic use? Africa is a wonderful place. But thank you so much.
And just before we go, again, just if it's anything to make all of us be confident and it will work, is that we were in the same situation with banking and telecoms. Don't forget. But the moment we took that strategic decision to take the banking sector into our hands, it was Nigerians who rose up to the challenge. We're seeing it with telecoms. We're seeing it in a little sense with aviation. So power should not be any different.
All right. We do hope this time next year, if we're going to be having this conversation, it will be a different scenario.
I hope so too.
Thank you so much, George Etomi, Chairman, West Power and Gas. Thank you for your insight.
My pleasure. West Power and Gas, I'm no longer chairman, I'm a director.
All right, thank you so much for that. Thank you for your time. So that's it on this side of Sunrise Daily. 30 minutes of business, about 30 minutes of business, right? So let's head back to Sunrise Daily Studio. I'm Ini John. I'll see you later with the markets from here also. So join me at 1 p.m.
Follow the due process, as I have said. We have rules, we have constitution. When you want to remove, you must do what? Follow this. At the same time, that man that said Obasa took part in the removal of Honorable Abduwahid Pelumi, Honorable Fumi Tejosho, and those people that were suspended. And I've said it, let me repeat it. Honorable Pelumi, right? Honorable Pelumi is my brother, is my friend. I fondly call him Boda Wahidi till tomorrow. When he was removed, he was on the floor of the house. Probably he was presiding. When Tejosho was removed, she was in the house. And those who were suspended, they were around, and there was no involvement of police, and the house, the chamber was not broken into and fake mace was not brought to the house. I'm not afraid of being removed. Me, I'm not disturbed, but let them follow the true procedure. Having ambition to become a governor is not a sin, is it? However, I've said it on the floor of the house when the budget was presented that I had no thought of governorship. But that does not mean what? That I'm not qualified or I lack experience. So, and I still maintain that position. But in the whole of Lagos State, let any leader, anybody come out to explain that Obasa approached me and he says that he wants to become a governor. It's as simple as that.
Well, that's the background to our next conversation, and this morning we have Honorable Olumiwa Jimo. As you've seen earlier, he is right here in the studio with me, former Deputy Majority Leader, Lagos State House of Assembly. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning. A compliment of the season.
Which is same.
Yes.
What do you make of, well, some people call it drama, the removal of the Speaker of the House? What do you make of it? His own position is that it's gone against the grind. It's not followed due process.
Well, you can understand his predicament. His predicament is that somebody that has been, given paraphernalia of office for the past 10 years, and suddenly all those benefits and privileges were withdrawn. So he feels like committing suicide. He's committing suicide in the sense that the point he's making is out of point. The removal of the Speaker is only by the 2/3 of majority of the honorable member, and they are more than 2/3. And the allegations were itemized and characterized from financial misappropriation, from no respect for merit and tradition of the House, and high-handedness to fellow colleagues who made you Speaker. And it is these people that have the right and prerogative and authority, absolute authority, to remove you, which they are more than 2/3.
But his position is that they didn't follow due process, that he was not in the House when it happened.
Obasa claimed to be a lawyer, which I don't believe is a lawyer. I can give a case to him to, to litigate for me as a person. He claims that it's not due process. What due process do you need to remove Speaker? The due process has been done. 2/3 majority of the honorable member, more than 2/3. Don't let me say 2/3. That is the condition. And one of the errors, the erroneous impression got to his head that the removal of governor is also the same removal, and it is the same method you can remove Speaker, which is not. It is stipulated in the Constitution, Section 92. Subsection 2 state it clearly. You can be governor, you can be Speaker in the morning, and your fellow colleague just framed that the cap will put on.
Well, we'll speak to those other details, but the point he's making is that he should have been allowed to be in the House.
It doesn't matter. That is not the law. It doesn't matter. The Constitution is clear about it. The impression he has, which he thinks he has covered, is when he stronghold in some section into the House rule. And that cannot be higher than the Constitution of the country. The Constitution of the country is still the gromnum in which everybody relies on, that the Speaker can be removed by 2/3 majority. No condition is given. You don't need to be there. And it's a pathological liar. Pelumi was not there when he was removed. He was on his way to Ijebu-Ode to see late Senator Bayo Oshinowo when he was removed. Teju Osho was in Philadelphia. Teju Osho is still alive. All these things are not fictitious. You can confirm. Teju Osho was in Philadelphia when she was removed as the Deputy Speaker, which he was instrumental to. So he was just trying to expose his ignorance happy over his ignorance. That is what he is demonstrating.
It's like you have a personal beef.
Well, I don't think.
I'm coming. Allow me to land on the question. It's like some listening to you will say, look, you have a personal beef with him because he was also instrumental to your own removal in the House.
Well, you can say that, but that is not the case. But the case is that.
Are you happy with the fact that you were removed?
I'm happy because those are the issues that we have been raising.
Are you happy that he removed you?
I was not happy that he removed me.
So are you now happy that he was removed?
Well, I should be happy. What is it? Why am I happy? One, the process of removal, I was not notified, and I was the only person that was on the floor of the House. Indeed, I was the one presiding as the majority leader then. The Honorable S.O.B. Agumbi, who is my senior in the university, and also the majority leader, was on leave of absence on medical ground. So I presided over that day and I saw the process. I didn't challenge it because he was able to coerce and intimidate members to sign for my removal. But I take it with good faith. I know.
But what do you think informed your removal at the time?
Because I was I do challenge him on some of the policies and some of the ideas that is anti-democratic, anti-development, and anti-due process that are always been. And for some of us that grew up from the radical tradition in the student movement, we can't keep quiet. And Paul Baran, I quoted Paul Baran that the desire to tell the truth is the only condition of being an intellectual. Others are just courage and readiness to carry on the rational inquiry. And when we accuse him of some of the things, he was able to manipulate the new members who eventually removed him now, that they were trying to destabilize his government. And I'm happy that it is the new members now who are now ranking out that now saw merit in what we have been saying then and removed him, and he left the place with ignominy and disgrace.
But he still holds very firmly to the fact that he was not rightly removed because he was not seated at the time.
He doesn't need to sit on the now look at the constitution that talks about the removal. Let me
you said that earlier.
Yes, let me repeat it for emphasis. He doesn't need to be here. You just need to talk to remove it. You are first among equals. And one of the errors that got to his head is that he felt in his own wisdom that the removal of the governor should be equivalent to the removal of the speaker. The removal of governors requires ratification, and perhaps the CJ setting up a committee to do one or two things. But his own removal, his survival relies on his fellow colleagues.
But there is something that he's also said over and over again, that it's unimaginable for anyone to say that he built a gate with 16 billion naira or whatever it is, and that he has documents to back every...
He can have anything he has. The principal officer who should serve as his own decision maker, we are not part of the decision that led, they are not part of the discussion that led to the decision. So if those ones are saying they don't know anything about that, it is now left for the anti-graft agency, the EFCC, the ICPC, and the bureau, this bureau at Alagbon, investigation bureau of the police that has been existing before EFCC and ICPC, to investigate him. If it is found wanted, yes. That is when the idea and the theory of fearing can comes in. Yes, I agree with some who says that fearing, but it is left for the anti-graft agency to prove, to investigate whether but it was not properly. The other fellow, the fellow principal officer, have denied that they were not part of the decision and discussion that led to the... Because that gate, people don't know that is made for the speaker, not for every other member. It's because the governor has a special gate that he comes in. It doesn't matter. You are just one among equals. And that is what the fellow members are saying. And that is what we have been saying from time immemorial. And it has appeared now. When the former members who are now ranking now don't see merit in some of the argument that this man, the way he's going, I know he has survived on the economy of the House of Assembly government for over 2.5 decades. when he's not seeing the paraphernalia of office now, he feel like committing suicide.
So
and that is what you have seen.
So in the
that he has demonstrated in the
so
the
he
press
still
conference.
claims, he still says over and over again that he is still the bona fide speaker of the Lagos State Assembly. Just a second. So what should he appear at the House of Assembly and say he's going to sit in the office of the speaker? What happens?
That it's going to lead to his suspension. He knows the implication. He has been in the House for almost 2 decades. So that is, if I were to be in the House, I'm going to move motion for his suspension. Okay. And what is the reason for that? For you to be removed by almost 33, 34, which is more than 2/3, as the Constitution requires. You know what is giving him privilege and undue spellout? When he was the chairman of Speakers Conference, he has smuggled in some sections that the removal of the speaker, we must notify him for his removal at least a week or 2 weeks.
So you're saying that the rule of the House, now the members of the House of Assembly in Lagos State, they suspended their own rules simply because they want to remove the speaker. Is that what you're saying?
No, the House, the Constitution is the ground norm. And let me even say this.
So are you saying then, just to be clear, I mean, we know what the Constitution says, but then there are those who would argue that the rules of the House are based on the provisions of the Constitution, which is
it is based on the Constitution.
So if he says, look, they didn't follow due process simply because the rules say
he's a frustrated human being. He has to
well, you just said now that the rules made a statement.
Yes, the rule has been suspended. What the intelligence...
So the House has the authority to suspend the rule?
They have the authority. Because the Constitution gave the House the singular prerogative to regulate his rules. And one of the regulations is to suspend the House rules, in which he has succeeded in manipulating members. Okay. So that one is out of place.
Okay. Well, my colleague, Kayla, I'm very sure that Kayla also has a number of issues to raise. Kayla, go ahead.
You know, the security around the Lagos State Assembly is being beefed up this morning. There's... I don't want to call it tension, but a lot of people worried about what may happen because plenary is supposed to hold today. In fact, what our correspondent in Lagos is telling us is that you're not allowed within the premises. You have to show your ID card before you go in. But you see, Mr. Mudashiru Obasa says he remains speaker. I think maybe that's part of what some of the rank is. He says he remains speaker. He was welcomed by the APC, you know, grand reception. Says having governorship ambition is not a crime. At least we saw from there, I can see you waving your hands, we saw that he was being welcomed by some members, maybe not all of the members of the APC, but some members of the APC, you know, welcomed him, did the reception. He said, look, having governorship ambition is not a crime, you know, and whatnot. So when you look at the situation and the fears that many people may be having about today, what do you think is going to play out today? What if he shows up at the place? How do you think it's going to unfold?
My understanding of the parliament, having been in the parliament for 12 years, he claims that he's still the speaker, which I think he knows the implication is automatic suspension, which I feel that those who were left behind there, who are now ranking now, and I feel that he should be suspended for that, for claiming it's an impersonation. Impersonation means we have a speaker that was elected. You see, one thing about the parliament is that the parliament is a different ball game. When we were raising the issues of his not leading the house well, and there are some infractions, some felt in their wisdom that we should just ignore because it's one of us. But I argued, oneness is not the same thing as sameness. But since the majority don't want it to be discussed and in the open, we allowed the majority to take their way. But having demonstrated what he did on Saturday, you called that you want to pick your personal belongings, and out of the modesty the new leadership allows you, I don't see the reason why you turn that place to a press conference and exhibiting your ignorance and happy over your ignorance. The ignorance is happy over is it was removed by 2/3 majority, and those who are not in the country were even ready to sign that for his removal because he has been oppressing them. And I've argued that when we see things that are peculiar, exceptional, and specific to us, we must begin to think of things. We must begin to look at things that we have overlooked. And that is what exactly the new members and the current ranking member that are there did. And he was removed. And he should just...
Honorable Jimo, I want to be able to get your thoughts on this because one of the thought processes about this situation, sorry to interrupt, one of the thought processes going on about the situation is, well, you know, removed for misappropriation of funds and abuse of office. Was there some kind of panel of inquiry that was set up? Was he found guilty of these accusations that have been made against him?
I have a better position. Whether it's guilty of some of the allegations, especially on financial issues.
Misappropriation.
Left for the anti-graft agencies like EFCC, ICPC, the one in Alagbon, what do they call it now, that have existed before EFCC and ICPC, Criminal Investigation Department, to investigate him. That is why I think in the wisdom of the honorable members that are in the House now, don't subject that to debate. They don't subject it to debate in the sense that those are the anti-graft agency that have the singular prerogatives to investigate him. And I think they will do at appropriate time. But the House has done what is expected of them. He was suspended and they itemized and they characterized some of his misdeeds, which we have been pushing from the beginning of the session. You know...
Yeah, Honorable Jimo, I just need that clarification. I want to be able to get that clarification from you. Honorable Jimo, I just need that clarification. The accusations that have been made against Mr. Mudashiru Obasa, have they been tabled before any anti-corruption agency?
Hello?
Honorable Jimo, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
I said, I just want that clarification, just so we can be clear. The accusations that have been made against Mudashiru Obasa, have those accusations been brought before any anti-corruption agency?
There are so many issues before the anti-corruption agency. I don't know what is delaying the process. Maybe they are short of staff, I don't know. I can't hold brief for them. But I think there are substantial allegations we've read in the social media, and that is in front of written by civil society and human rights organizations about its mismanagement and how it's managing the affairs of the House. That one is left for the anti-corruption agency to take up. And in respect of its removal, the due process it was removed. He also argued that his impeachment is not the same thing as removal. They are all nouns. Now it's not, even some can be adjectival phrase. But the point is that it was constituted at the appropriate place and the process was completely done. So its removal is known by the law. You see what happened when the budget presentation, which people have celebrated that it delayed the governor for 4 or 5 hours. Yes, it's unethical. But you don't even consider what I called the community of diplomats, who are foreign diplomats, who represent various countries, that he also delayed. They left that place with annoyance for the conduct he has presented, that he has demonstrated that day. And you know, those people will report back to their various countries about his conduct, about his misbehavior. How can such person become Speaker of the House? It's quite unfortunate that he was the Speaker then, that has been removed now. But the reports and the feelers we are getting from other diplomatic missions,
Yes.
is not palatable. It shows that he reduced, which I know, he reduced the standard of the House of Assembly back to the background, which I think the new leadership should take up as a serious matter now.
The issues a lot of people will be worried about is, when we see these sorts of political rancor, especially in state assemblies, it's the grass that suffers, it's governance in the state that is impacted. Do you think that this impasse, because it's an impasse for now, it's not Uhuru yet, do you think it will impact governance in Lagos State in any way, especially at the grassroots levels?
I don't think it has any impact that people were. You can see the bodies of permanent secretary that went to the House of Assembly to see the new speaker. They were all rejoicing, just the way the staffers of the House of Assembly were rejoicing. If you remember this section in the Bible, Psalm 126, if my memory carries me right, that when the Lord turned against the captivity of Zion, those people were like them that dreams. They were like the liberated people that have been kept in captivity for so long. They were happy that it was removed because he reduced the standard of House of Assembly to 0. And these are the issues that we have always been raising that led to our suspension then. But I'm happy and gratified that the new members who didn't see merit in our position then, or some see the merit, but feel that getting closer to him, they will get personal gratification. They were terribly disappointed. So they were the one that champions his removal, and he left the place. He was removed with ignominy and disgrace, and a lot of people were happy over that. And what I'm saying, a lot of people are happy over that. He deliberately will take level 10, 12 to head a department, which ordinarily level 17 is there.
Okay. So what do you see happening going forward?
Well, happening forward that the new leadership has to reverse and they've suspended the rules, which he has succeeded in manipulating, smuggling in some sections. Let me cite a section. A section that the removal of Speaker, you must give him a week or 2 weeks notification, which is not the constitutional. The Constitution is still the ground norm that dictates, but the Constitution gave us the prerogative to regulate our proceedings. It hides under that to manipulate and smuggling in some section to suit his own. When he was the speaker, when he was the chairman of Speakers Conference, he smuggled in some section. Myself and SOB were antagonistic to those sections that we should notify him before his removal.
Well, as some people would say, I guess the morning shows today. This is just the beginning of days, I guess. So we have to wait because, as we always hear, we could wake up tomorrow morning and we hear it's a family matter. It's always been already been resolved. I guess we'll wait for those days.
What?
Well, I mean, we'll wait. So one of those days we'll probably have to call you back just to answer some of those issues again.
Let me demystify your already mystified position. It can't be a family matter. This is a person that is arrogant to the leadership of the party.
Again, we will wait to see. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Honorable Olumoyiwa Jimoh is former Deputy Majority Leader, Lagos State House of Assembly. Again, thank you for your time and your perspectives.
Thank you.
A comment or two from you before we go this morning. Honorable Ademola Alalade says, very impressive development in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and congrats to the new minister. But one question that we need to ask is, what are the security arrangements put in place to secure all our IDP camps to protect facilities and displaced citizens? Kayla.
Professor Enakena, he says, reducing poverty in an emerging economy like Nigeria entails improving the country's economic productivity and opportunities for its citizens. This will mean investing in human capital potential and creating jobs for women and young people, increasing financial access and opportunities for these groups in rural communities, suburbs, and advancing technological innovation. And Festus Akimboyewa is next. He says, praying that the current minister of Humanitarian Affairs will get it right this time. The Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs must take into consideration the specific challenges and vulnerabilities IDPs and displaced people face in the ministry's plan and respond effectively to disasters and outbreaks of disease in IDP camps. They must not be neglected in any way. One, thank you all so much for your messages this Monday morning. The accountability question is being asked, and that is progress. So let us listen up to our government officials, ensure that they deliver on the things that they have promised. I like the fact that our human capital development has become something that we are moving towards, because we cannot be building infrastructure for people who are not going to be using it, or who are seeing it as a way to steal or use it to feed themselves, you know. So let's keep the momentum going and ensure that these people in office give us the accountability that we ask for. I'm Kayla Megwa. Have a great rest of your week, Ayo.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Just to say, Honorable Alalade got your message again. That's talking about the former speaker being properly removed. Well, that's your own opinion. How many other people agree with you? I guess we'll see in days to come. Have a wonderful rest of your day and a productive week.